Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you had a good learning session with my colleague Kavya, who had helped you in understanding the Python, which is the core Python, which is essential for data science. Now, after the core Python, you have studied with the NumPy library. Now here, as we continue in our learning journey of Python for data science, we are going to start to learn with how to work with Pandas data frame. Yes, coming to this Pandas data frame, so it's an object under Pandas library. So we'll see how to work with Pandas data frame and also how to work with Pandas series and how we can create a data frame using an external data and how to work with the data frame. So that's what this entire section of learning is all about. Now, as I mentioned already, since this is a course, so you will be able to access the course using our YouTube playlist, or alternatively, you can come to our website manifoldailearning.in and under it, click on the courses. And once you click on the courses, please select the course of Python for data science and register over here in order to get the source code, which I'll be using it in this hands-on sessions. So guys, I highly recommend you to use the source code, which I'll be sharing to you in the classes, practice it, and which will actually help you in your learning journey. All right, so let's get started. Now, talking about this Pandas data frame. So just like we have NumPy arrays, so just like we have np.array object, when it comes to NumPy library, we have pd.dataframe object. So this is the object, that is the basic object when it comes to Pandas library. But overall, if I want to say from my Pandas library perspective, we actually have two objects. One is my data frame and the another one is Pandas series. Now the best part when it comes to Pandas data frame is, so I can have the data belonging to the various data types. So that's one of the advantages when it comes to Pandas data frame. So here in this case of Pandas data frame, so it is like an Excel sheet format for the Python. Now what do we have in Excel sheet? So in an Excel sheet, we will have the column names and we'll also have the row names, isn't it? So in the same way, my data frame has my column name as well as my row name. Now if I want to get a specific value, I can get it with the help of its index position or with its index name. So that's the specialty of working with Pandas data frame. I know it sounds too much of theoretical. Let's do one thing. Let's see how we can create a data frame using our Pandas library and what are the attributes that we have in the data frame. Let's learn about its properties and let's learn about the important functions that is present in this Pandas library for the object of data frame, and then we'll proceed ahead with this advanced concept. Now all the source code, as I mentioned already, it will be available in this LMS, that is Learning Management System. Now in order to get the Learning Management System, just click on free button, which will take you to the course page. Like once you click on free button, you will be redirected to this LMS once you are logged in, and you will be able to access the source code from this interface. Okay, now I'll be writing the code in Google Colab. So I'll start working with Pandas library. I'll begin by saying it as import pandas as pd. Okay, so once I've imported it, let's run through the commands. Now to create a data frame, we have a method that's called as pd.dataframe. So let's see how we can use that. I'm going to say it as tf, okay, pd.dataframe, and inside the parenthesis, it expects the data. See, if you look at the official documentation clearly says that the first argument it expects is the data, and the second argument is index, it's an optional one, and the columns, it's also an optional one. Now, as I mentioned already, Pandas data frame expects the data which is in 2-dimensional in nature, because in an Excel sheet, it's a 2-dimensional data, isn't it? Now, if Python is using the same Excel functionality scenario, so we also have to send a 2-dimensional data, and I cannot send a 3-dimensional data. Now to create and send us 2-dimensional data, I'll make use of NumPy library. I'll say import NumPy as np. Okay, so this will take care of necessary imports. Now inside my pd.dataframe function, I'll say it as, let's do one thing for the benefit of everyone. I'll create a new variable as data so that it will be more explicit and it will be easier for you to follow along with me. np.random.randint and I'll specify the range as 0 to 100, and I want the shape to be 4,3, so 4 rows and 3 columns. And in order to make sure that we have the repeatability of the values, I'll set the random seed np.random.seed and I'll specify it as 5. Okay, so here I've created a data, but I've just called df and pt.dataframe blank. So what happens is, if I simply call this pt.dataframe, this would actually create me a empty data frame. See, you can see over here, it's an empty, nothing is getting printed over here, which means it's an empty data frame. Now, if I want to create a data frame with the data, I'll say it as pt.dataframe, and my first argument is data. All right, so data is equal to data. I can be even more explicit as well. And then I'll print my df, that is my data frame. Okay, so this has created me a data frame. Now observe guys, this is very important when it comes to data frame. Here the top 0, 1, 2 which you're seeing over here, so these are called as column names. And here 0, 1, 2, 3 which you're seeing over here, so these are called as index names or index labels. Now by default, it has taken the column names as 0, 1 and 2 and the index labels as 0, 1, 2, 1, 3. That means by default, if I don't specify my column name or my index IDs, it will just start with zeros. Now observe, this is very important. We'll do one thing. We'll give our own column names and we'll give our own index labels. So I'll copy it and I'll paste it over here. This time I'll specify some arguments. I'll say it as columns is equal to, I'm going to send in a list which has 3 letters A, B and C, and index. And let's do one thing. This time I'll explicitly specify it inside my Python list. I'll say row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. All right, now I'm creating my data frame with my data and I've specified my own column names and as well as my own index labels. We could see that my newly created data frame has the column names as A, B and C and the index names as row 1, row 2, row 3 and row 4. So that's how simple it is to work with Pandas data frame. Now we know that, okay, these are the column names and this is the data that I have inside my data frame and these are the index IDs. Now, one of the common thing that we always do when we are learning any library is, first we learn how to create that specific object and we'll try to access the various attributes of that particular object. Now, it's time to look at the various attributes of Pandas data frame object. Now we have these important attributes when it comes to Pandas data frame. So we have shape attribute, which will return as the shape of an data frame. We have D types. It will return as the data types of that individual column that we have in our data frame. I have shape. Okay, this is the shape. Okay, we have columns attribute. This is going to return me the column names, and index attribute. This would return me the index labels. So let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and check out all these attributes. I'll paste it over here and I'll execute this. So the shape is 4,3, which means 4 rows and 3 columns. df.dtypes, so it is going to tell me as what is the data type for each and every column. So for column A, data type is integer, column B data type is integer, column C data type is integer. And if I say df.columns, this is going to return me the column names. df.index, so this is going to return me the index labels that we have for this data frame. So these are the important attributes when it comes to Pandas data frame. Now that we have seen the properties of a Pandas data frame, as a next step, let's look at the common inspection functions which we would normally use when we are working with data frame. The reason this is important because these are the functions which we'll be using once we load the data. So let's say I have a data from an external server. So this is an external server, and from this external server, I'm loading it to my Pandas data frame. Now, obviously when it is in my external server, I'll not be able to see it, isn't it? I'll be able to visualize it once I create my data frame. Now, if I have 1 million entries in my data frame, I cannot view 1 million at a stretch. I cannot do it, isn't it? So for that reason, we'll do a quick inspection. So it's like when you prepare a rice in your cooker, you'll not go ahead and taste the entire rice which is there in that cooker. So you'll pick a small grain of rice and you'll see, okay, whether the rice has been properly cooked or not, or how does the rice feels, isn't it? So in the same way, once we create the data frame from the data, we are going to use these inspection functions to have a quick peek as, okay, so this is the data that I've just loaded. How does it look like? I mean, can I see it inside it, or like what are these first 5 rows would look like, and what are the last 5 rows would look like, or what is that specific row would look like? So that's what we are interested in once we create the data frame. So let's see how we can do that. Now, in order to do that, we have various functionalities available to us. So we'll explore head and tail, and we'll also explore the info as well. We'll look at the lock and iLock in the next video. So head, tail and info. Let's see how we can use those inspection functions. I'm going to say it as df.head. Now, before I run this df.head, let me create a bigger data frame. This time I'll create my NumPy array, which is having the shape as 100 rows and 3 columns. All right. And I'll increase the shape size as 1 lakh. And p.data frame data, and I'll specify my columns is equal to list of ABC. All right, and for the index names, I'm not going to specify any index names, guys, because I'm having 100 rows and I don't want to specify it. I'll keep it as it is, and I'm going to call my df. Now, once I call df, see, it has displayed first few rows and it has displayed last few rows of my data frame as a default view for me. And it has created me a data frame which has 100 rows and 3 columns. Now let's see how does these 3 functions, head and tail and info, these 3 functions would work. Now if I say df.head, observe the output. So df.head is going to return me first 5 entries of my data frame. Remember, it's first 5 rows. And if I say df.tail, by default, it's going to return me last 5 rows of my data frame. Now, instead, if I want to return first k elements, in such scenarios, I'll say it as df.head. In place of k, let's assume k is equal to 10. So in such scenarios, I'll say 10, df.head 10. So this is going to return me first 10 entries of my data frame. In similar fashion, I can say df.tail 10. So this is going to return me last 10 rows of my data frame. Okay, so these two are the very common inspection function, and these two will be used directly as we load the data into the data frame. Okay, now apart from that, as I mentioned, there is one more method that's called as info method, and this info method gives us the more information about every column. It says column A, there are 100 entries that we have over there and the data type is int64. And along with this, it also tells how many columns that we have and what is the memory usage. So this is also another very important inspection function that we have inside this pandas data frame object. All right, guys. Now I hope you enjoyed this learning session with pandas library. Now we are going to continue in this pandas learning series as we proceed along in our YouTube channel. Now, as I mentioned already, if you want to get the access to this code that we are working with, so please go to the courses, click on Python for Data Science course, register over here, and you should be able to access this IPython notebook. Now, if you have any questions or if something is not clear, do let us know in the comment section. We'll be happy to help you. And if you're new to us, please consider subscribing. I look forward to seeing you next time, and take care. All the best.